Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'm going to be taking a look at the Many Malamars of GLC. So for those of you who don't know what GLC is, just a quick recap or explanation, I guess. It is a single prize only, no Robux format, so you can't play any like EX Pokemon or Megas, GX Pokemon, stuff like that. It is singleton, except for basic energy, because, only one copy of each basic energy would be a bit painful, but yeah, singleton does mean you can only play one copy of each Pokemon, including evolution lines, and you're only allowed one type per deck. So if you do, for example, choose to pick, let's say, Psychic type Inkay, you then won't be able to play like a Dark type Malamar in your deck, and like vice versa. So, something worth bearing in mind. But as for Inkays, the Dark type ones I would say are a little bit more interesting at the very least. Like Culver family is nice to have, as always. But 50 HP is definitely a bit on the small side with it being such a small squid. But yeah, the other one with upside down evolution is kind of interesting, but you do have to make Inkay confused, either with its own confusion wave or maybe like another ability on a different Pokemon. But a very interesting ability nonetheless. As for psychic types, you get a bit more HP choice, but yeah, hypnosis may be your best option, but I guess fickle tackle if you fancy doing a bit of a coin flip. But yeah, honestly, nothing too crazy on Inkay's Frontier, but Corva family, again, always appreciated. But yeah, first up is we have, in my opinion, the most interesting Malamar in this video. But yeah, this is an ancient trait Malamar, so it has a really cool ancient trait stop, which says prevent all effects of your opponent's Pokemon's abilities done to this Pokemon, which is quite nice. So things like Monkey Dory and stuff wouldn't be able to hurt Malamar, which is cool. It does have the ability Contrary, which says if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, whenever your opponent flips a coin during his or her turn, you treat it as tails. So that's for an item, a supporter, an ability, an attack. So a very powerful ability, can be very annoying in certain situations. But yeah, it's kind of niche in a sense because it does mean that Malamar does have to always be in the active spot, which is not the best with only 90 HP. And the attack is not particularly great. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world. And, if you do have the same cards in your hand as your opponent, like the same number of cards, then you can leave them confused. So that would be one way to guarantee tails on confusion. But, only doing 40 damage for 3 energy is a bit lackluster. Like this could be a lot more damage. So it's a bit of a shame that they had to like balance it out in the way that they did, but I'm sure there are other ways as well to, like inflict special conditions and such, inflict confusion and, like just really annoy your opponent with these effects. But yeah, the ability is very interesting at the very least. Next up, those we have two Malamars from XY base set. The one on the left, I don't think is anything special. It's pretty bland and boring. But the one on the right has Mental Trash as an attack. Your opponent flips 4 coins, and for each tails, he or she discards a card from his or her hand. So we've got things like Xerastic, of course, so we can shrink our opponent's hand size down to 3 cards. Your opponent flips 4 coins, and with any luck, you could like decimate your opponent's hand. Of course, you're not going to be able to do that every single time, but there are other ways of shrinking your opponent's hand with stuff like Judge. N is a pretty good one. Iono is another. So there is a couple of options. Mental Trash could just be a very annoying attack. Of course, there's a chance that you just you muck this up basically because your opponent just flips like 4 heads or something, and it's just a bit of a waste. But at the same time, could be a lot of fun. It's just a shame that it's a 1/1 line in GLC because it means you can't really build a deck around this. Like it's just another piece in a dark type control deck or something. But could be an interesting piece to mess around with. Next up, though, is we have a one from Ancient Origins. Now, sadly, this will start the trend of kind of like bad Malamars. Entangling Control, I guess, could be useful if your opponent is building up a very powerful attacker on the bench. Then you could bring it up and confuse it. Could be annoying, but at the end of the day, it's not really that hard to get away from confusion in this game. Like, confusion is just really not the best special condition in the world. Like, you can just coin flip out of it, or you could just retreat or evolve. So, things that are, harder to do in GLC because it's a bit hard to find like switches and ways to retreat. But at the same time, I don't think Infusion is really like super viable at all. So Entangling Control could be worse, could be a lot better though, sadly. And it doesn't do any damage either, which is a shame. Next up is we have a one from Burning Shadows. You can move an energy from Malamar to one of your bench Pokemon. So if you want to do one of these like setup attacks, and that's kind of cool, I guess. But I feel like dark types already have pretty good energy acceleration through like Dark Patch and Toxtricity more recently. So, like Energy Slosh, not really the best. Like Psy Beam in a pinch, I guess, do a bit of confusion. But I mean, you could do way worse, I suppose, but there's just so many better options. It's not really worth considering at that point, but at least the artwork is nice at the very least. But yeah, next up is we have a one from Forbidden Light, probably the most iconic Malamar, at least that one that we've seen in recent years. Has the ability Psychic Recharge, allowing you to accelerate a basic Psych Energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon, which is pretty cool. I use this in my Psychic GLC deck actually, though I do need to tweak around a little bit. But yeah, it's sadly not as good as Xatu, I would say, just because Xatu, although it is from the hand, is always going to get you to draw cards as well, which is nice. But yeah, this Malamar, it's not the worst. It is a bit of energy acceleration at the end of the day, and in a format where psychic energy acceleration is kind of limited, it's nice to have another way of accelerating energy. But we've still got Wonder Patch, still got Xatu. So, at the end of the day, oh yeah, and Gardevoir to like double psychic energy worth. So, like it's not super, super critical, but at the end of the day, it's not like the worst ability to have. And you do have that pre-release promo artwork as well. It's a nice option. Next up, those we have one from Unbroken Bonds. And this one does have a very fun attack, which can be surprisingly devastating, but it just depends really on what's going on in your opponent's hand. So they reveal their hand, and you may discard a Pokemon you find there and use one of that Pokemon's attacks as this attack. So if you pick out something like, say, Autoterra, for example, and Torterra does 50 damage for each evolution Pokemon you have in play, you could do a ton of damage with that, or like another attack that does 200 base or something, but it can't attack next turn. Things like that. This could be very powerful in the right situation, but it's definitely more of a surprise piece. Like you'd have to have this pop out of nowhere and maybe do a big chunk of damage, but I think overall there's just like better options for stage one dark types, like Weavile and such. So don't really think Hypnotic Rain is super worth it, but still a very funny attack if you wanted to build some sort of weird meme deck. And I guess Dark Pressure could be useful for Mill, but yeah, overall not the best, but certainly not the worst, and at least a bit interesting. Next up, those we have one from Champion's Path. We don't have to spend too long on this guy because he's super boring. Flip 2 coins on random peck and you might do, what is that, 160? It's okay, I guess, but for 2 dark and a color, it's very expensive, not really knocking out anything. So, it's all right. Like 50 damage and confusion, yeah, not the best. High retreat cost as well. I think we can move on. It's just not the best, sadly. Like this one was interesting. This one was just like, bit meh. Next up, those we do have a one from Chilling Rain. This one is really cool. It was actually like a solid budget deck when it came out and everything. Rapid Strike Tentacles reveal any number of Rapid Strike cards from your hand, and you do 40 damage for each card revealed in this way, and then you shuffle those cards into your deck. So can be pretty good. You can swing for an awful lot of damage with this, but you do have to track down all your Rapid Strike cards, and then of course you have to find them all again after you've shuffled them back in. Now, if Psychic had a decent presence in Rapid Strike, then maybe you could build a deck around this, but honestly, not even sure if it's worth it. It could be kind of fun if you're a big fan of this artwork. Like the artwork with Xerasic is very, very cool. But yeah, overall, not a super strong attacker just because you have to find all the stuff constantly, which is, yeah, it's a bit of a pain, sadly. But, it is a fun attacker, at the very least, to build around. It's a fun attack. Next up, those, we have a one from Lost Origin. And not super impressive, can do 120. And if you have a same card in your opponent's hand, which is kind of unlikely, like there is some key staples in GLC that float around from deck to deck, like Lily, for example, Nest Ball, stuff like that. But I don't think that doing like 120 is worth it for 1 energy. Not when there's like much better options that are more consistently going to do damage. So yeah, sadly, just not a very good card. Although I will say that the artwork for this one is amazing. I'm a huge fan of that style of artwork. I forget the artist's name, but yeah, it's a very, very cool kind of art style. I think it's cool. Next up, those we have a one from Obsidian Flames. This one has the ability Psychic Insight. Once in your turn, you may look at the top card of your opponent's deck. And if you do, you look at the top card of your deck. Pretty cool. Just get a bit of knowledge about what's going to happen next, I guess. But typically, you'll be shuffling your deck so often anyway. I don't think it matters too much necessarily, unless you're messing around with like roller skates or something. Like you're always just trying to draw cards every turn, and you're wondering if it's worth it or not. But things like Pokédex, I think, do a much better job at this, and they're much better like trainers just for looking at your opponent's hand and stuff and knowing what's on your opponent's deck. I guess it's kind of useful, but unless you can manipulate it, I don't think it's like going to impact your games all that much, really. So it's a fine ability. Like there is way worse, to be fair, but I don't think it's like a super powerful card unless you're messing around with an attack that does more damage if a certain card is discarded from the top of either player's deck. That happens a lot in fire types. But unless you have one of them for dark types, then I don't think this ability is super worth it. There are better options basically. Next up is we have another Malamar. I know there's so many Malamars in this video. We've got one from Shrouded Fable with colluding tentacles, but weird name there. For one dark energy, switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot, and you do 120 damage to the new active Pokemon. But if you didn't play a Xerasic from your hand during this turn, this attack does nothing. I mean, even then, the attack is like kind of meh. Like it's sort of a pseudo snipe move, which is kind of fun, like if you view it in that sense. But at the same time, getting Xerasic every single turn is kind of annoying. You'd have to set up some weird like via secret loop and stuff, and it's just like, is it super worth it? Like for the disruption, like maybe if you play Xerasic and you want to do sniping, but honestly, I think the one with mental panic we looked at earlier in the video, I think that one is honestly a bit better for like disruption and stuff. So it's not the worst. It is kind of interesting at the very least, but I don't think this is a particularly strong effect. If this was like 120 damage to the active Pokemon and then like, I don't know, 30 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon as well, then that could have been something maybe worth talking about, but sadly, it's not that. So, it's not very good, sadly. But yeah, thank you for watching. I do a new set review for GLC with each new release, so do subscribe if you're interested in being updated. The next one, as I record this video, is going to be Perfect Order. So this is a series to stay, so let me know which Pokemon you would like to see. There is already a playlist, so if you think of a Pokemon, then of course do check the playlist in case it's already been done. Got Garchomp and Dragonite on there, of course. But yeah, if you want to dive into the competitive side, OmniPoke and the format creator Tricky Gym have both done fantastic videos and guides for each type if you're just interested in learning more about GLC. But yeah, it's been Ember Power. Let me know what you think about Malamar down below. We'll be building a dark type deck. And yeah, thank you for watching.